All right. Thank you guys for joining us today. This is the Inner Strength Empowerment Hour. I'm Lori DePietro stand-in. And of course, I am joined by my success coaches, Joanne and LT, Lori, and also my husband, John stand-in. This is a great topic today, and I wanted to get John's take on it as well as a man, because what we're talking about today is how and why women prioritize their spouse's health over their own, and what the result of that is, why it doesn't work, and what the result of that is in their life. I see this all the time with women that I talk to, both in and outside of my group. I've helped hundreds of women over the years, and this is a common theme. When I started this journey, I had a toddler and 2 teenagers and a husband at home who was not interested in changing his diet. When John and I met, he was not interested in changing his diet. And so this is something that comes up again and again and again, and women will let it hold them back. So this is what we want to talk about today. For those of you who are waiting on the live stream, I apologize. Zoom was not cooperating. Sometimes that happens. I know so many of you are dealing with Zoom now, so I know you get that. So the first question that I wanted to ask with Joanne and LT is, why do you think women feel like they have to prioritize their spouse's health or their partner's health over their own, or wait until that person decides they're ready before they can all make the change together? Why do you guys think that happens?
Go ahead, LT.
Okay, well, I think women are just the natural caretakers of the family, and they want to make people happy. They want to get people what they want. A lot of people are resistant to change. They are used to that acidic diet with the fats and the sugars and the coffee and the Cokes and all of that. And so it is going to be a change. But I will just say personally that I don't do that. I've already prioritized myself over this, and y'all can join me if you want to, and I'm going to fix it. And they like what I fix, but they're off kind of doing their own thing at lunch and with their snacking and that kind of thing. So they're not as committed as I am, but I just said up front, this is what I'm going to do. You know, I just decided to make that myself a priority from day one with this.
Right. What do you think, Joanne?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, you know, what we talked about last week about women wanting to fit in. And they, in Glennon Doyle's book, how all the girls were sitting around and they looked at each other for, are we hungry or are we not hungry?
Right.
And I think it kind of goes back to, if you're the mom or you're the wife, you want to fit in with your family and what they're doing. And I also think it kind of stems from a place where, I don't know if you guys remember the show What Not to Wear with Stacey and Clinton.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times they would say, quit shopping off the clearance rack. You are worth shopping the full price racks and in the nice stores. And I think it's hard for women to say, I'm going to do this thing for myself and not involve the family, because if they're not bringing the whole family with them, why should they get something special treatment or whatever? Yeah. So I think that's a big hurdle for women to get over.
I did a post earlier this week on investing in yourself, and that got so much feedback because women aren't doing it and they know they're not doing it. And so, you know, that is a huge problem. So what examples have you guys seen with the women that you're working with in our group, or other women in your lives, where you're seeing this play out?
I'm seeing that people are taking care of themselves and doing what's good for them, and they're fixing things, and they're saying that you can have this, and this is what I have for the family, but they're not going to compromise and go ahead and get what they do. And or if they're doing pickup food, or if they're at a restaurant, they're ordering from the sides. They're kind of going in with a plan. We're not just being so spontaneous and, you know, making decisions on the fly, because we know that we have to plan things a little better. So I'm seeing women start to plan things, not just their day, but their week ahead and how they shop. Because, you know, we're just not going to bring in a bunch of trigger foods that are going to set us off just because your daughter likes Little Debbie's and your husband likes Cheetos. You know, we're not going to get them.
Right.
You know,
So are you seeing any problems with any of the women that you were like, where are they getting tripped up, would you say?
having trigger foods in the house if they buy it for somebody else, because, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. And when it's right there, they're just calling your name. Because, you know, the house may burn down and you haven't eaten that lemon pie yet. So, you know, you got to eat that pie before that
right now. Yes,
right.
Absolutely. Right today. Yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday who she said that she was having trouble getting started because her husband had purchased a side of beef from this place, like it was expensive, and this grass fed, like, so basically sadly they had a whole cow in the freezer, and so she was having trouble getting started because her husband was like, well, we have this whole cow, like, well, you can still eat it, you know, like, just because I'm not eating it doesn't mean you can't eat it. But that was tripping her up. What do you think, Joanne? What are you seeing with people in terms of?
I've seen a lot of women who just can't get started too, because the family isn't all on board. They're trying to get the whole family on board right from the get-go, and that's just not going to work, and they're exhausting themselves. You know, you're trying to learn a new behavior for yourself, and that's hard because you know all the struggles that you have yourself, and then you're dealing with all the rest of your family trying to get them on board. Or even, you know, if you are the caregiver for an elderly parent or somebody else, and you're trying to like make sure they're eating, they don't even live with you maybe, and change everybody all at the same time.
Right. So when you know, when John and I met, we were not eating the same. He was always really respectful of the way that I ate. I was very upfront from the beginning that, you know, this is what I'm doing. And so the first like 4 years of our relationship, he was still just eating the way he always ate. And I'll talk about that in a second in terms of how we, you know, organized that at home. But, you know, he wasn't interested in changing his diet. And then about 3 years ago, he made the decision to make those changes. And so I wanted to get his perspective because I did not, I never, every once in a while I said, you know, something about his diet because he wasn't feeling well. He was always struggling with his knees. There was always, you know, just some kind of problem. And it wasn't a weight problem, it was just not feeling good. But in general, I just sort of did my thing. And so I wanted him to give his perspective on how that played out. Go ahead, babe.
You want me? Oh, you want me to? Well, like to what you said, so I was having a lot of knee pain. I was having, on my days off, I was just exhausted. I was tired. And there was a couple times, like my go-to was just a sandwich, you know, preferably ham. You know, I'd love my ham sandwich, and I can't tell you how many times I heard you say, you know, you're gonna get colon cancer, and I'm not gonna take care of you when you get cancer because you did it to yourself, and I'm, you know, I never thought that switching my diet would change my life, you know, as far as my knees and stuff like that, even though you told me, but I'm a guy and I'm stubborn. So,
so what would have, let me ask you this before you keep going. So what would have happened, do you think, if I would have been like, okay, we all got to do this together, and I would have kept saying to you, you have to go plant-based, you have to go plant-based?
I would have dug in and just did it out of spite. You know, like, I would have been like, nope. You know, I'd be like, you know, that's just, you know, I understand, you know, that's what you want to do, but for me, I'm going to do this. And, and I'm just that type of person. You know, I don't like people telling me what I can and can't do. You know that. You know, so that's kind of what I would have done if you would have just kept pushing it. You know, you would have got the resistance back of, you know, I'm not doing it, and I'm just doing it just because that's what I do.
Right. So one thing that but what we did do finally, after, you know, a few years, is instead of making different components to the meal, which is what we were doing at the beginning. So like, let's say we were having spaghetti, like you would have meat sauce and I would have veggie sauce. Like, so there'd be, you know, different components for the same meal, which wasn't a big deal. We made that work for several years. But then we started doing more plant-based meals at home. And we're
Well,
used, go ahead.
now we started first with, on my days off, we were going to do plant-based.
Okay, yep.
So that's where it started. So it was like, usually, you know, 2 days off a week, and we would do, you know, maybe the zoodles and spaghetti and, you know, some other stuff. And then that's kind of where it started.
Yeah. So and you, I think, were surprised about how yummy the food was. So I think that was part of it too, is like because you hadn't tried a lot of the things that I was eating
Well, I
before.
remember the first time you made tempeh, and I saw it, and I was like, what is this? And you explained it to me. So, you were cooking it, and you turned around, and I cut a small piece, and I tasted it just not cooked, and I'm like, tastes nutty. I could work with this, you know. So, you know, that's part of what I do, is I love creating new dishes out of new items. So that was kind of opened a whole new world for me.
Well, and I know that you were not a fan of tofu until I made my tofu with peanut sauce that's in the book. And now that's something you love. Like, I make it
Oh, I
in,
love tofu.
yeah.
Love it.
And someone unfortunately was telling me, I think it was last night, that she's like, we got they got a meal service. She's not one of my clients, and she got like purple carrot or something, and they sent a tofu dish and she didn't like it. And I'm like, I'm telling you, everybody I know that's tried tofu that somebody else made does not like it. Like, when I tried it in college, I was like, this is nothing. This is like a pile of nothing. What is this? And that's how everybody feels about it, because most people don't know how to prepare it. And so we have come up with some amazing dishes with that. But so back to what do you so we were doing some plant-based at home, so you knew it was tasty. And I you know, and also I know that one of the things that moved you forward was giving up soda. So can you talk about what made you decide to give up soda, and then what made you decide to go plant-based?
So giving up my Pepsi, that was hard.
And you were drinking like a
So
12 pack a day, right? Like, it was a lot.
yep. Oh yeah, to keep going. And sometimes I work, you know, 10 to 12 hours a day, and I just needed to keep going. It's high paced, and I needed, you know, as what I thought was I needed was the caffeine, but it wasn't the caffeine. You know, it's pretty much just the sugar. But I was having such bad knee pain, and I know I told you this every day. I was like,
Every
I
day.
just can't, I just can't keep doing this. Like, I know I'm not going to be able to do this until I retire. You know, this is just something that, you know, I'm not going to be able to do.
And you were
And
wearing knee braces, special shoes. I mean, you had
yep,
tried a lot of different things. Yeah.
yep. And you know, then I remember telling you, I'm like, you know, I think I'm just going to cut back. And you were like, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? It ain't going to work. You know, instead of drinking 12, I'll drink 6. It'll be fine. And you were like, if you're going to do it all the way, cut it out. And I remember that first week, and my guys here remember the first week, because I was cranky, real
Yeah.
cranky. They would open, you know, because they drink soda. So, you know, I'd hear the crack of a Pepsi can, and I was like, you know, like, what was that? You know, and like I could smell it from across the room. And I was like, oh man, can I just smell it as you're drinking it? You know,
Oh my
like,
God.
you know, I loved it so much. But after I got out of that cranky stage, I started noticing that my knees felt really good. And I was like, man, this is crazy. Then, then you did the research and found that, that's one of the things that causes knee pain is, the soda. And then that led into, well, I'm going to try plant-based for a week to come up with recipes
I
for
remember
the
that.
club.
Yeah, that worked. Yep.
And I went breakfast, lunch, and dinner plant-based, and I came up with some great recipes. Some of them which are in our book, and then I just started feeling good. And then I was like, I think I'm just gonna slowly transition. And then you were like, if you're gonna do it, just do it all the way. And I'm like, okay, and I'll never. I mean, now that that I'm 95% or 99 or I still have to taste stuff here. But for the most part, that's those life changing. And my only regret was that I didn't do it sooner.
Right.
Just the way I feel, I've never felt this good in my life, even when I was playing sports.
Right. So, and that is, so going back to, what made you make the switch, it was really just realizing that it was.
You were right.
That, yeah. Yeah, well, of course, obviously. But seeing how healthy I am, and, seeing that when you made changes, you felt better, and so I think that, what would your advice be to women who are thinking that the best thing to do is to wait until their husband is on board with this before they start?
Well, I don't know if I have the magic words, but I will tell you this: 95% of guys are competitive. So if you do your thing, and you guys do your thing, with you, Lori, you for me, and you look good. You look good, and you feel good, and you got all this energy, and and I'm like, I don't, there's something going on. And then, like, I wanted to keep up, and it just took everything I had to keep up. And then I'm like, well, she looks good, and by good I mean sexy, so it's like, well, I want to look, I want to look sexy too, like, then now it's a game, it's
Right.
like, okay, I can do this, I wanted that spark to be there, for our relationship, and for my life, and I wanted to be there for the kids, and with the path that I was going down, I mean, who knows, if I wouldn't have changed, heart attack at 40, don't know, with the way I ate, it's possible.
And you were on high blood pressure medication,
Yep.
Which you have been able to get off of. You also dropped down a prescription in your eyeglasses.
Yep.
So much is, change that you don't realize, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is men are competitive, and they'll do it for their own reasons when they see what you're doing. And so that's great.
Sometimes I think of it this way, is I'm a very observant person. So when we go to the store, I'm watching people. I know everything around my surroundings, and I would watch when you would walk by, and some guy he'd be like, hmm? And I'd be like, that's mine, and I'd be like, okay, I see this, I think, like, as you get married, and the guys tend to get relaxed, it's like, she's mine, but once other people start noticing, then you're like, okay, I got this, here's what I'm gonna do. So that was kind of one of the things. It was like, I don't, you take, and I remember joking with you saying, like, well, you take such great care of yourself, and I feel like it's a lie that if I'm all frumpy and unhealthy, you know, and you're like, well, you know, I have this great program, and then it's just like, but here's my husband, you know, you look at me and I'm like, whoa, you know, oh, do this, it's great, you know, but, you know, then it's just, once I saw the benefits of it, I'm like, I'm not gonna change what I'm doing now. It's like,
Right.
and I thought I would miss, you know, I hear guys and they're like, oh, I could never give that up. I'll miss steak and burgers. And I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm like,
Well,
I don't
no,
miss
and
it.
you have guys at work coming to you all the time saying they don't feel good, and you know, they're going to the doctor and having cholesterol problems, and they're having high blood pressure, and they're having, you know, blood sugar issues, and so, you know, I know that you are singing the praises of a plant-based diet at work, and that they eat a lot more plant-based because of you.
Well, they eat all my stuff.
Yeah,
So I make stuff for me, and then they eat it all. And then
yeah,
I have to make something else.
right. Um, All right. Well, I think this, hopefully for the women who watch this is really illuminating. Joe and Lori, do you guys have any questions for John before we let him go?
Well, John, we just want you to keep on churning out those good recipes, because you're some things in the book. My husband just loves it. And I have to say, this is vegan. And he goes, oh, you know, so he really likes it when I tell him that it is. And, you know, your peanut butter pie, we all had a fit over that. You have these little snowball cookies that I'm about to start. So it's not just about meals, it's some kind of sweet treats too. So we just want you to keep on coming with the good stuff, because that's how we're going to draw them in, John.
That's right.
Oh, I know. I know the saying that, you know, the best way to get a guy is through his stomach.
That's
So,
right. John
yeah,
gets
I
it through
mean,
his own stomach. That's
well, I like to think that, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this for Lori. You
Right.
know, I'm like, and then I take it home, and then we're like, well, this is good, you know, and I'm always fine tuning stuff, because I just can never be happy with it, and I know that drives Lori nuts, because she's like, it was good the first time, and I'm like, but I don't
yeah.
remember what I
He said
did.
he changes it like I don't know how
Yeah.
many times, and I'm like, I liked it the first time, stop messing with it.
Yes, and the pumpkin cheesecake is next on the Taylor household fixing list, because you
Yeah,
just posted that, and that looked
Yep,
so good, and it's the season.
it is.
that it is.
And I always tell the story about how John is famous for the no potato salad, which is a roasted
Yes.
cauliflower salad that's like potato salad. And we were at the Cleveland Veg Fest, which is about 15,000 people. And everybody who came up to the booth was like, wait, is this John? John of the no potato salad? I'm like, what is happening? So, yeah.
I didn't even know you posted it. I was like, wait,
Right. He gives,
how do
I'm
they
always
know?
asking for the recipes, but yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that thing is famous. So if you guys haven't, you can always look it up in the group if you haven't seen it. And I post it periodically, especially around the holidays, because people love it and it's
Yeah.
easy. So, all right, babe, we will let you go. Thank you for joining us.
Oh yeah, anytime.
All
Everybody
right.
have a great
Thank
day.
you.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
John.
See ya.
So I think it's just really good to have, I think it's just really good to have a male's perspective on this, because
Yeah.
I think, you know, women do get into this thinking that if they don't force their men into it, or that if they, you know what I mean, that it's not going
Right.
to happen. Whereas it's exactly what he said, men are competitive and they will end up doing it for their own reasons, just because they see you doing it and really living it, and they see that it's not a diet, another diet. Because that's the other thing women say to me is like, I just don't want to tell everybody that I'm on another diet because I've done this so many times.
I know,
So,
but that's the thing. It's such great food that it's not even like a diet. I do
no.
have my husband and my almost 18-year-old daughter drinking these smoothies every day, packed with these nutrients. And I think that it does help, you know, the performance better throughout the day. He plays a lot of golf. I know that he's playing better than ever. And I'm like, you're playing so much, you should be on tour with Phil Mickelson by now. I mean, my gosh. How much more
Yeah.
golf to play? But he's saying that it's really helping his swing with everything. His problem is, and that's where you have to kind of watch. They still, my daughter does too, they like to eat what they want to at lunch, and they like their snacks. But if I have stuff, they will eat it. I made those vegan apple fritters the other day. They had a fit over those, you know, so if I have it around, they're going to eat it. But I'm not going to be the police and watch them on every snack and every lunch, because that's where they're going to get turned off.
Right. You can't, and like Jen said, they just dig in, and they'll just do it when you're not looking, whether, you know, they have to decide to do it for their own reasons. And that's what you want anyway, because, so that is, you know, why do we feel like eating the same way as other people, even if it's unhealthy? Why do we see that as some kind of bonding experience, do you guys think? Like, what is it about us? Because I think that's part of it. It is, you know, the convenience of it. You know, women are convinced that I got to make a bunch of separate meals, which you don't. You know, I give that to, you know, my clients all the time. I have a 5-step guide to help you, whether your family is on board or not, so that you don't have to make separate meals, because we did that for years. And part of it, I think too, sometimes is an avoidance tactic, like, oh, I'll do it when my husband gets on board, and he's never getting on board, you know? So it's like, it's a way for you to kind of avoid moving forward. Mm-hmm. But part of it is that whole thing where your spouse is your eating buddy, you know? So what do you guys think about that? Like, what is it about eating the same thing as everybody else? Because it's not even just your spouse. It's, if you go, you know, people will be like, I don't want to stand out at lunch with my coworkers. Like, what is it about that, do you guys think?
Well, I think we've attached a lot of emotion to food. Yeah. And I think we use food as a celebration so many times. You can't go to a friend's gathering or a family gathering without there being a whole spread of food. It's unheard of. I don't think I've ever been to somebody's house where they didn't put out food. And, you know, I come from a long line of farmers in my family, you know, my great aunts and uncles and stuff. And when we would go visit them, it's like we get there and they have put out a feast for us to get there. It's not enough just to visit with each other. We've attached like food to every, and so over time, when you see people at family gatherings or you're out with your friends, we've got the feeling good about seeing our friends, but then there's food with it. So we cross the signals and we just think the food is what's making us feel so good. And it's not. It's seeing our friends, it's seeing our family, it's gathering together and having a good time. But I think the food is just so ingrained in what we do that we just feel like it has to be part of everything.
Right.
Right. And everybody's got an aunt or a grandma or somebody that, I made this for you. These are your favorite. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't eat a can of sugar cookies anymore, Aunt Sarah. I can't, I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm going to have to just give it away. But I know that they equate it with love, and they equate it with something that you used to be, and you used to love that. But, you know, we've made a switch now, and it's just not worth it for us to eat a tub of sugar. It's just, we're going to feel terrible and sick and do all these triggers and get our gut flora acting crazy again. So.
Right. And I think too, it really is, you know, it's a tribal thing, that you're part of the tribe if you do the same things that we do, whether it's thinking the same way or wearing the same type of stuff or eating the same way. It's just this weird tribal mentality that we get, which is why when somebody acts differently or dresses differently or eats differently or whatever the thing is, it's uncomfortable for everybody.
And it can be when you're in a restaurant with some friends and they're all getting the mozzarella cheese bites and the fried pickles, and they're drinking and they're ordering a big steak or whatever. And you're over here on the sides menu getting your steamed broccoli and your sweet potato. You know, I had to do that this past weekend. And I just thought, what is this? Is this a free-for-all? I didn't say a word. I let them all just eat like to their heart's content. But I wasn't jealous, and I didn't want to eat all of that. I just kind of observed it, and I was happy with what I was doing because I knew I was doing the right choice. I knew.
So do you feel like they noticed that you were eating differently? Did they?
Did they notice I was eating differently? They certainly did. And they all said, women eat like this. And I'm like, while you're eating your 10th mozzarella cheese fried deep ball, and then get a key lime pie when they go home, and then eat snacks when you're watching the ball game and all that. I mean, it was just a food fest weekend the whole way around. And I really didn't let it bother me. I really didn't. I went ahead and they ate what they wanted. But I will say, when we almost got home, because it was a 4-hour drive, and Tim pulled in that chicken finger place, and that's all they sold was chicken fingers at the last minute, and kept rustling in that bag, I said, how much more are you going to be rustling in that bag? But before, and we kind of made a joke of it, and it was funny, but I say this to make a point. I have been eating this way now for a while, having good results. My mindset has changed. My personality, my disposition has changed. Before I was on this plan, if I had said, how long are you going to be wrestling on that bag? He would have snapped back at me, and I would have snapped back at him, and an argument would have ensued. But I'm in such a good place and in control of where I am that I kind of made a joke out of it. But it wouldn't have been a joke before. It wouldn't have been a joke.
Right. Because you're hangry and you're irritable, and so that's the other thing. I think that, like John was saying, they notice that you're different.
They notice I'm different, and so he responds to me different, and he goes, well, what? And it was just kind of a funny moment,
a playful
but
thing.
If it had been before, he'd been like, well, my gosh, and I was about like, yeah, my gosh, it would have been something like that. And we would have been mad for the rest of the night, because this is just the way we would have done. I mean, I know it would have been.
Right. Yeah. And I think what, the other thing is what John alluded to, which is about, the physical part. Like you said, that your husband has definitely noticed some things and made some comments in a positive way. Yeah.
He likes to say, LT, looking good. He loves it. And that's just fun for us, and it's fun for me, and I like hearing it, and I just prance around him, and we just think it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think that men just think differently than we think.
They do.
So, but when we behave the way that we were, which is, or that a lot of women still are, which is that, I do hear a lot of like, well, I have to keep all this stuff in the house because this is what everybody likes. And even if it's their trigger foods, or even if it's unhealthy, I hear women say, well, I couldn't help it. I had to eat some of my kids' McNuggets, and I know it was bad for me. My question always is, well, if you know it's bad for you, though, why do you not think it's bad for your kids? So it's like there's such a weird disconnect when we talk about what, like, taking care of our family, and taking care of them means cooking bad food that is not, that they might like, but it's not healthy for them. And we know that it's not healthy, but we keep doing it. And what kind of message do you think that we're sending about ourselves and to our kids and our spouse when we go down this path?
I just think it sends a mixed signal. And I've battled that over the past year because I have teenagers. So teenagers are their own animal, and they're not little. So you can't, I feel like when they were really bought all organic food, I made all healthy snacks and healthy meals. And now that they're teenagers and, they want what they want, and they've got these opinions, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to go up against that. In real time, when you're trying to make your own food and you're trying to get everybody on board, if maybe even one meal at a time. That's kind of what I'm doing. Like, here, just this one meal. Can you just humor me for one meal? And I still get pushed back. Some days it's good, some days it's not. But yeah, I think it does send mixed signals. And so sometimes I get just frustrated. Like, that's it. That we're just doing this. You guys won't play along. You won't do it when I offer it and whatever. So no, give me your phone. You're done until you eat vegetables. Give me your phone. Like, there's just, I think we do have to stand firm in it, because once you know, you can't unknow these things. You can't
Right.
unknow the research that you've given us about dairy and about meat and about sugar and the effects that it has on our bodies. We can't unknow that. And how, with a clean conscience, can you go and give these things to your kids? But I'm guilty of it. I mean,
Right.
it is what it is. And
Well, I mean, we all know that teenagers can be freaking relentless when they want something. And sometimes it's just like you just give in because you're just over it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just constant. They just constantly want something and they're constantly relentless about it. So I get that. And I'm not above bribery. I'm just like, hey,
right, me either.
you want this thing, or you want me to take you here, or you want to do this, like, then, eat your vegetables on your plate, like, and so what's happened though, over time is, and I'm not, like you said, it's like, it's not that he doesn't, that I have 3 kids. My girls are grown adults. Tucker's 16. So it's happened over time is that he, he's kind of coming full circle, where he went through this rebellious period and now he's becoming more health conscious again. And so they are listening and they are soaking it up, even when they're giving you a ton of grief. But right, if I was trying to get him, I remember my mom buying a cake on the way home, like a birthday cake from Kroger, on the way home on Fridays, and we would have it on the weekend, and she would eat the bulk of it by herself, and she would say, you should never do this. And I feel like that's the signal that we're giving to our kids. Like, we're saying you should never do this while we're teaching them bad habits. And I mean, I was guilty of it, before I changed my diet. I constantly was bringing, donuts into the house. We would stop and get Dairy Queen every day after school, and then, but then I'm like, you guys should eat healthier. Don't eat so many chips. You shouldn't have so much pap, eat your vegetables. And yet I wasn't modeling the right behavior. So it is this, that's why when you say I'm going on a diet again, that your whole family is like, oh my God. Because it is such a, like, they feel like it's just such bullshit. It's like, you're not going to stick to it, and you don't really mean it, because look at the behavior that you have already modeled. And so, but I think it also shows that we don't prioritize ourselves, because over time we are just not really taking care of ourselves. And so that's the other sad part, is none of us wants our kids to grow up and not take care of themselves. And yet that's what we model. And I say that with love in my heart, because I did it as well. So that's not a judgment. That's me saying, like, yeah, I did that too. Because of that, my oldest is really unhealthy. I think you can't control what your kids do, but I feel like if she would have had more time seeing me as a healthy person, it would have been helpful to her. Whereas my younger 2 are much healthier.
Yeah. I think if I were the mom of a young child today, a little kid, how I wish I could go back to make different choices now. If they were little, that little kindergarten, 1st grade, elementary school age, because, mine drive and have their own money and cars, and they're going to get what they're going to get, while they're out,
Right. Yeah. Right. It's like you get to an age where there's not as much control, obviously, over it. Which goes back to what you're saying, Joanne. It's like, while you still have the influence,
right?
It's like, you're trying to help them make better choices.
Especially with girls, I think it's important. And even though they're teenagers and they're, they give me a bunch of flack, they still see the example of mom taking care of herself and prioritizing herself. And I have seen glimmers of hope. I've seen them, yeah, I'm going to choose this, or I'm gonna make this choice because that's what's best for me. And it's not only about food, it's, you know, the mindset stuff that we've done in the group of just prioritizing yourself, not with food, but with self-care, with exercise, with just taking care of your whole mind, body, and spirit. I've seen that carry over into some of the things they do with school, with their teachers, how they communicate with their teachers now. And, you know, I've just seen it. It's a whole big picture. So it doesn't just have to be about the food choices. It's really prioritizing your health.
Right. It's being empowered as a person to make good choices in every area of your life, because I think when you feel out of control with your eating, it makes you feel out of control in every area, you know. And so that's, you know, I've done videos on that to talk about that physiology, that the triad, where your physiology is the base, and when you are not in alignment in that area, your thoughts and feelings are off and your actions are off. And so when you're modeling that, you know, as their mom, you know, then you're showing them how taking care of yourself leads to better decisions in other areas of your life too. And the awesome thing about that is that for, you know, those of us who have partners or spouses, that they're seeing that too. You know, they're seeing that is a difference. It's not a diet, it is a lifestyle, it's a different way of living. So how do you guys feel like we are natural caretakers? So going full circle back to what LT was saying at the beginning of this, like, so how do we use those tendencies better moving forward? What is a better way to look at this role? Because a lot of women are looking at it like, well, I'm the caretaker, so I need to cater to these guys. This is what they want. And so I'm going to give them what they want because that's what I do. What do you guys think is a better way to look at this?
Yeah, maybe make the good things. And when you're making the good things, talk about, you know, this really does not have all this added sugar. This does not have all this added fat. And, you know, and then maybe incorporate what that can cause. You know, that causes some high blood pressure and that can cause some heart problems. You know, our family has a history of some heart problems. You know, just kind of incorporating that in, but doing it in a casual way instead of like, you know, our family, you know, instead of doing it like that.
Instead of beating them over the head with it.
Yes.
Right. What do you think, Joanne?
Yeah, and just being the example, just setting the example in everything that you do will carry over. And if you stay consistent and you don't fall off, like, you know, diets are meant, when you actually show people that this is a long-term change, I think that speaks so much louder than just, I'm going to be doing the next new thing, or, you know, I think it's a long-term example that you're instilling in them.
Right. Yeah, it's being a real caretaker isn't feeding their addictions. Your husband or your spouse, your kids, you know, they're all addicted to foods just like we are. You know, and so when they want something, it's because they are addicted to sugar and they're addicted to fast food and things like that. So, you know, it's not denying them those things to help them change those habits. And they actually say that if a child is obese by the time they're 10 years old, that there is a 70% chance they're going to be obese for life. So this is something that we need to think about, you know, but it starts, you know, that doesn't mean we need to get everybody on board at once. It starts with you. It starts with you getting healthy, because until you put your own oxygen mask on, you cannot help anybody else. And so that's why I think women get so overwhelmed, because they're like, they don't feel good. They're overweight. They have all these symptoms. They're exhausted. And to try to think about dragging their whole family along with them, whether it's just their spouse or it's, you know, kids as well, is just too much. Especially if they're fighting you on it.
Yeah, and I will say that it's not too late for a certain age person, because my mother is 81 and was just having all kinds of stomach problem, and ended up being chronic gastritis, and she had some cysts on her pancreas. So I went and got her from her retirement community that she lives in Georgia, and she lived with me for several months this summer. Completely turned her over to a plant-based, and all those symptoms were gone. And so she is the biggest proponent of it now. And now while she lives in this retirement community and they do the meals, she knows what to choose. And then we supplement by sending things from Amazon, from Whole Foods, you know, so she can have things in her room. But she was just constantly in pain and not wanting to eat and being sick and living on antacids, and just really kind of turned off of food. She just said, food doesn't agree with me. But now she enjoys eating again because she's eating things that are agreeing with her. And this is an 81-year-old.
And you told me too that you kind of almost felt like her light was going out a little bit. Like she wasn't as vibrant, as aware, as engaged.
No. And I think this COVID has played a part in that as well. But yeah, both things together, it was like she was a different person from a year ago when we had a big 80th birthday party celebration for her. And I thought, oh my gosh, how far we've come down in a year. And now she was she had lost a lot of weight because she just wasn't eating at all, because everything made her sick or didn't agree. And so we're trying to build that back up, and she's getting her appetite back, and she's eating the good, healthy things. But you know, it just really takes a toll on somebody mentally when she just said, you know, if this is all that there is, then I don't even know that I want to be here anymore. And my mother would have never said that. Right. This was not her. So this really did play a part. I can hear the lilt in her voice now when I call. Yeah. I can hear the excitement. I can hear the being interested in what we're doing, because before it was too much of it. She was hurting and too sick that she just was really just like, I just got to get off this phone. That's the kind of how it was before.
Right. Well, that leads into what I was going to say is, ultimately, women are resistant to prioritizing themselves. They're resistant to investing in themselves. They're resistant to prioritizing self-care because they feel like it's selfish. But ultimately, what are the benefits of doing that? When you take that step for yourself, what are the benefits? And I know that, that is an amazing benefit with your mom. I mean, that's to see somebody's light come back on.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is incredible. Joanne, I know that you have had a recent experience with that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
About last night?
Yeah, about last night, yeah.
Well, so yeah, and what Lori was saying about how you feel sick, you don't want to participate in life, you're not there anymore. And I had gotten to a point of that being that sick to where I had just given up, and I just kind of didn't care. I didn't care what I looked like. I didn't care because I was too sick to care, to put any effort. And since I've been doing this, I said, you know what, I'm going to prioritize my health, and it's going to take a while, but I'm going to keep with it. And last night I was in a fitting room because all of my pants are way too big. And so I had to go find some clothes, and I got into a size 10. And last summer I was a 16, but a tight 16 to where I was like busting out and uncomfortable. And I had one pair of 18s, but I cut the tag out because I didn't want to buy an 18 because that wasn't who I was, I don't know how it got there. And so last night I was texting Lori, I'm like, I'm not crying in the fitting room, you are, because it was shocking to me. It was just completely shocking. I took in the 12s and I took in the 10s just to be a little bit cocky, and I put the 10s on and I was like, what is going on? Like, what is going on right now? And it was, so I think the self-care that I've done over the whole last year has paid off in ways that I never would have imagined, even because when you're at that point of your health and your weight, you think, it's too late for me, I can't do it. And you can.
But
there's bright hope for tomorrow. Bright hope for tomorrow. And when you're in that dressing room and you're getting to do that, you walk out of that store walking on clouds.
That's
I wanted to buy the whole shelf of 10s. I wanted to buy all of them.
All is right in the world.
Right.
Yeah, it's so
So, but also, I think the thing that it's important to point out, because so many women have yo-yo dieted. What is different about this time? Because I can see how women could, because I posted that last night. I didn't post who you were or anything, but I posted that, and I could see women thinking like, yeah, I've done keto or I've done Weight Watchers and I've gotten down to that, but I gained the weight back. Do you fear yourself gaining the weight back?
No,
Nope.
because I know how to do it now. I know I broke that addiction. I think it's just an addiction. It's an addiction, and it makes a vicious cycle of when you feel sick, you can't see any light at the end of the tunnel when you're sick like that. When you just feel awful from the minute you wake up, and you're exhausted and you don't want to go to the grocery store and you don't want to go in the kitchen and cook anything because you're just completely fatigued. You can't see that. And that's where I think so many other diets and programs just fall short, because they don't prioritize self-care. And that's, like you always say, like, we didn't get here just because we like food. We got here because we didn't prioritize ourselves and we didn't have the right mindset. And I feel like I have such a different mindset. It's not only that I've learned new techniques to cooking and, because I used to cook all the time. I love cooking. But it's not just that I learned about new foods. It's that I learned a new mindset. And I can't go back to that other mindset because like I said before, you can't unknow it.
No.
You're not the same person.
No,
I'm
and
not that person anymore.
The benefits far outweigh. I mean, it's losing weight it's great and it's a wonderful one, and we all want it. But when you sleep better, your joints are better, your energy, endurance, your skin is better. There's just it's so encompassing to your whole self.
Right. Right. And that's what I tell people all the time is everybody loves to look good. I mean, that's a given, but that's not actually what keeps me going. What keeps me going is I never want to feel like I felt before. I feel so good that I never want to feel like that again. And that's the thing that I'm always focused on. So bringing this back to our topic for our last kind of question, what, I know that, Laura, you talked a little bit about your husband is kind of, seeing some of the benefits just from you making some things from him, like not because he's eating that way completely, but, you're kind of still doing your own thing, but he's seeing the benefits of it. And I know that a lot has changed, with you too, Joanne. So what's different? How has your husband responded? Because I know at the beginning, he's very much like John, like the soda drinker, like just eating a bunch of crap all day. And so what changes have you seen, and how do you think that's coming about?
Well, last night my husband walked out of the store with a smaller size pants too. He really had. And since, his office got shut down since March, so he's been working from home. So he's kind of been, he has to eat what I make. And we've gone back and forth. He did really, really well in the very beginning. And then, it kind of creeps in and he goes to the store and gets his own candy or pop or whatever. And a couple of times lately, he's even been like, he's back to like, I don't feel good. I don't, but he knows because he's already tried it before for a couple of months. He knows how to do it now. He knows the benefits of how good he felt. And so last night he had a Mountain Dew in his hand and he's like, I'm going to do this. I can't believe I bought a new size. I'm a size down and I'm going to really do this. And he said, I'm going to get on the elliptical and whatever. I said, well, you're still going to have colon cancer. So, because you won't change the way you're eating. You can exercise all you want, but if you don't change the way you're eating. And he said, okay, after this one, and he's holding his Mountain Dew. He's like, I'm going to quit after this one. I said, why don't you go pour that one down the drain right now and start right now? And he did it. Yeah. He did it. And it wasn't hard to convince him that was the right thing to do. Right. Because he knows.
Right. Yeah, I do think it's just like they see the changes in you. you're making food that most men just, they want the food that tastes good. That's like the big, as long as they're full and the food tastes good, it's not that big of a deal. Like, so,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, this is, I think that, you know, just like what I asked John, what would your advice be for women who are saying, you know, which we've all talked to these women who are saying like, well, I got to wait and see if my husband's on board. What do you guys think about that? What would your advice be to them?
Do it for yourself. Do it now, because if you're going to wait till he gets on board, he may say, let's wait till after Christmas. Okay, then you're going to have October, November, and December of gaining and a big holiday food fest.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe you could do it sooner than that and have a plan as you go into the food fest, and then be proud of yourself because you have control and a plan. And when you have that control, you're going to feel balanced. And when you're balanced, you're more calm. And when you're more calm, you're more pleasant to be around.
Right.
You really are. I
Yeah,
mean,
it really is. It's a whole package. And you can have a great holiday. In our group, we have already started talking about
great
recipes.
recipes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this isn't deprivation. This isn't keto where I'm going to be eating a coconut flour tortilla for for Christmas. Like this
Y'all,
is
this
like
is
you
good,
can,
delicious, decadent food.
right,
Rich, tasty food.
right. All right, Jim, what about you? What would you say?
I would say, you know, like what you said earlier, a lot of people, and myself included, they put so much on their spouse or on their family to be like an excuse. I can't do this if my family's not doing it, so I'm not going to do it. And I would say, you know, nobody's coming to save you. You can't expect your spouse to say, okay, let's go, we're going to do this together. No, you have to do this on your own. This is you. Nobody else is coming along to care about your health the way you can care about your own health. And just do it. Stay quiet about it and meet your own goals. You don't have to announce it to the whole family that you're doing it. It's not about them. It's about you.
Right. Right, exactly. We are, not only can we save our own lives, but women are such leaders, and really in most cases, they are the heart of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
They're the ones that are leading, and they're just doing it quietly. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's the thing, is just realizing that that taking care of yourself first is going to make such an impact, not just on you, but on everybody.
Yeah. And if you feel like you're just existing and just getting through, just making it through, because my favorite part of the day used to be when it was over. It really did. Yeah. When it was time to go to bed, I was like, finally, oh God.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the day now is getting up.
Yeah.
I'm not existing. I'm thriving. I'm living. I'm excited. I'm hopeful.
Right.
I'm engaged.
Right. That's the thing too, is just feeling passionate about your life again. And it's, you know, hard to believe, maybe for some people, but that does start with your nutrition. You know, we've talked about all the different ways why that's true. Like there's lots of scientific reasons why that's true. But, you know, it's also a mindset of being able to take care of yourself and get control in this area of your life. And it just starts to be a domino effect for everything. But it starts with you. So thank you guys so much. And I hope that even though we weren't able to stream in, that everybody can get a lot out of this. And we will see them next week. So signing off.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.